Brothers, good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. It is great to see so many of you here, and we have several exciting updates to share about the momentum and direction of Delta Upsilon fraternity. Before we begin, feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from tonight. It's always great to see how many parts of the country and across North America, and if not the world, our brothers are tuning in from. Let me quickly introduce tonight's presenters. My name is Justin Kirk, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of Delta Upsilon International Fraternity and the Delta Upsilon Educational Foundation. Joining me tonight is Tom Durein, Oregon State 92, who serves as our International Fraternity President. We began these town halls back in 2020 as a way to keep our membership informed during the pandemic. They proved to be a great way to stay connected with alumni and our campus partners, and they remain an important part of how we communicate updates across the fraternity today. And before I turn it over to Tom, I just want to give you a quick snapshot of where the fraternity stands today. And the fraternity today really is in an excellent place. Today we have more than 3,500 undergraduate members across 65 chapters and associate chapters. And our fraternity-wide GPA is the highest it's ever been, at nearly a 3.30 GPA. And Tom will expand on some of the progress that we've made over the past 2 decades. Tom?
Can you hear me? I apologize. I got a note on my computer that I was muted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Sorry about that. Apologies. A little bit of a new computer. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. Excited to have you with us and grateful that you would spend some of the time of your evening with us. As Justin mentioned, over the past year, I've had a chance to connect and reconnect with alumni across North America. It's one of the most rewarding parts of serving as your fraternity president. I've had a chance to attend alumni gatherings in Naples, in Louisville, Scottsdale, Arizona most recently, and it was wonderful to see so many brothers and to hear about the lasting impact that DU continues to have in their lives. And when I attend these events or I get a chance to speak with alumni, I often begin by sharing the remarkable progress that our fraternity has made over the past 20 years. And I'm kind of excited to share some of the numbers with you that really highlight that progress, some of which you may be familiar with, some of which may be new to you. First, our average chapter size is now 54 men per chapter, compared to 28 men 2 years ago. 20 years ago. Our fraternity-wide GPA last year was, as Justin mentioned, 3.3, up from 2.97 20 years ago. Last year, 24 men per chapter, and this is an important one, 24 men per chapter experienced one of our educational programs, compared to just 5 men per chapter 2 decades ago. And that's really huge. We're reaching so many more of our members on an annual basis. And then the average gift to the Delta Upsilon Educational Foundation last year was $1,900, which is up from $393 in 2006. So many men and so many brothers, so many friends and family continuing to see the value in investing in our future at DU. Those numbers reflect something very important, that DU is stronger today than it has been in many, many years. And our board of directors is committed to continuing that momentum. Much of the work is guided by our strategic plan. The plan that we developed in 2023 is in place, and we've made significant progress in a number of areas since then. And what I appreciate most about this particular plan is it's not a plan that sits on a shelf collecting dust. We review it at every single board meeting, we talk about it, and we adjust it as new information emerges. And we keep it central to our work, to the work that we're doing every single day to support both our undergraduates and our alumni. So our strategic plan focuses on 4 key areas, and today that's what I'd like to briefly walk you through, is the 4 different key areas of our plan. The first is providing impactful experience for our undergraduates. The first key area of our strategic plan, providing impactful experiences for undergraduates. Our educational programming was last significantly revised in 2010, and it has served the fraternity well for more than a decade. But a lot can change in 15 years. We are currently evaluating each program, its timing, the format, and how we deliver it to ensure that it's meeting the needs of today's students. We expect to announce some meaningful updates later this spring to our educational programs. The second pillar of the strategic plan, innovating fraternity operations and delivery. DU has long been a leader in adapting and innovating. Justin will talk shortly about two important initiatives that we've launched specifically in the past 18 months. But in addition, we've recently launched an AI committee that's going to be led by board member Andrew Martin. The committee is exploring how AI, artificial intelligence, can help us improve our efficiency and enhance the quality of work across the organization. The third pillar for the strategic plan, invigorating alumni engagement. It's no secret. The key to the success of our chapters, undergraduates, is involving our alumni. DU is a lifelong experience, and our undergraduate chapters are strongest when alumni are engaged and involved. Brother Rod Barleen, also on the board of directors, is leading a committee focused on alumni engagement. After surveying alumni, we're developing new initiatives designed to help graduating seniors and alumni stay connected to DU throughout their lives. And finally, the fourth pillar for our strategic plan, growth of our undergraduate membership. The board recently approved a renewed investment in our expansion strategy, and Justin's going to talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. But as the board worked through our strategic plan, we realized also that our vision statement needed to evolve. Tonight, I'm pleased to share our updated vision publicly for the first time. You can read along here with me, but I'll read it to you. Delta Upsilon exists to redefine what the world expects from fraternities. We build better men not through secrecy, conformity, or empty tradition, but through genuine brotherhood, unshakable character, and the courage to lead lives that matter. We are guided by friendship, character, culture, and justice. These are not just ideals, they are a challenge. We envision a world where these principles of Delta Upsilon drive lasting progress and inspire positive change in every community we touch. Folks, that vision reminds us that DU is not just about the undergraduate experience, it's about building men who carry our principles with them for life. Our responsibility as alumni, as volunteers and leaders, is to ensure that future generations of Delta Upsilon men live that vision every single day. With that, I'll turn it back over to Justin for an update on several initiatives and the work of the Delta Upsilon Educational Foundation. Justin, back to you.
Well, thanks, Tom. And Tom briefly touched on just a key update within each of those four areas. But if you have questions about what we've already accomplished in one of those pillars or what we have planned or other committees that we have operating, feel free to reach out to me or to Tom, and we'd be happy to walk through all of the different key initiatives within each of those areas. The strategic plan is robust. We've already made a lot of progress, and we'll continue to refine it and revise it as we move forward in the next couple of years. And so with that strategic plan, the board also regularly reviews and sets performance indicators, KPIs, that help us monitor the health of the fraternity. And that really ensures that we're making progress in the areas that matter most. And one of the most important of those areas is membership growth. Strong chapters ultimately create leadership opportunities for undergraduates. They create deeper alumni engagement and a stronger fraternity overall. For those of you that have active chapters, you know that you're able to connect with those undergraduates, you have more connection with the alumni, and you probably feel a little better about your DU experience. And so that's why for us, expansion continues to be a major priority for the board and the fraternity. You know, I attend a lot of conferences that have our campus partners, other fraternity leaders, and what we're finding time and time again, and that when I hear from campus folks, that they're across North America, the values and the approach to fraternity that DU has and has had for years is exactly what students are looking for today. We have outstanding campuses where DU has once thrived, and our alumni are calling and saying, we want to bring our chapter back. We think that now is the time. We're committed to our chapter. We want to support them. And we believe that young men need fraternity more than ever today. And so we're hearing that from our alumni. We're hearing that from our campus partners. And we have a lot of requests to bring DU back to campus. And so what I want to do is just share a couple quick updates on several campuses where we're working to bring back DU to either establish a new or what we might call an old gold chapter. So this year alone, we're working on 4 expansion projects, and 3 of them are returns of our old golds, and then 1 is a brand new campus for DU. Kent State, Carnegie, and UNC Wilmington are all expansion projects where we're bringing back DU chapters. And in fact, the UNC Wilmington group will actually have their associate chapter ceremony this weekend with more than 20 members. And then Cal State Fullerton is a growing chapter in or a growing university in California. And they actually reached out to DU and said, you know what, we need more fraternities on campus. We have more men wanting to join fraternities than we really have fraternities that have availability for those men. And we think DU would be a great fit for our campus. And so we have a team right now at Cal State Fullerton working to establish DU for the first time. Next year, we're going to return to 4 old golds: North Dakota State, Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan State. And I want to highlight Michigan State there because we already have a 25-man interest group that have been, they reached out to the headquarters early last fall. We've been working with them, cultivating them. They've been adding members, and they actually sent 12 men to our Regional Leadership Academy last month, which is the most of any DU chapter or associate chapter, and they're still just an interest group. And so I think that really just speaks to that there's young men out there that want this experience. They want the leadership training, and they will do everything they can to help build a chapter so that they're able to have that experience. And so we'll have our expansion team there in East Lansing next fall to help rebuild our Michigan State chapter. And then if we look at the expansion calendar in the next couple years, we have UCF, University of Central Florida, Oregon, and Clemson already scheduled. And then we have Rutgers, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Washington State. And in fact, High Point University in North Carolina has invited us to do a presentation, and so I'll be heading out there next week. And so if you really look at that expansion calendar, it's robust, and we have universities reaching out to us saying we want DU on our campus. And so that's why the board has made a renewed investment into our expansion strategy. That there's a lot of opportunity for organizations that the universities want to partner with, and DU is one of those organizations. And so moving on, I want to highlight 2 initiatives that we've launched since our last town hall. And these initiatives really are significant for the fraternity, and they were years in the making. And the first one is we've established the Decayupa National Housing Corporation. And so for years, the fraternity has considered what is its role within housing. We have great local house corporation presidents and alumni leaders who have largely carried the load when it comes to housing since the start of for DU's housing program. And the headquarters has largely has provided resources, support, and really hasn't stepped into the space of housing. But we know that for housing is one of the most important long-term assets that many of our chapters have. And without competitive housing on some campuses, our DU chapters simply won't be successful. And so our Decayupa National Housing Corporation, its philosophy really is pretty simple. We want to help preserve and protect those properties that are key to having a DU chapter. And we want to provide guidance and resources to the local volunteers who oversee them. And ultimately, the goal is to ensure that Delta Upsilon housing remains strong and competitive and well managed for future generations of members. And so the impetus to really push the housing corporation across the line was that the Oklahoma chapter had low membership, and it looked like the chapter was going to close. And the alumni had a need for somebody to help out with housing. And on a campus like Oklahoma, that if you don't have a chapter facility, you're probably not going to have a competitive chapter there long term. And so our house corporation was able to step in, help the alumni, and we took ownership of that house in the fall of 2024. And so the housing corporation will manage and maintain the facility for the next couple years until Oklahoma is ready to return to campus. And we know that that was important for us to be able to return to Oklahoma for us to preserve and protect that facility. And so since we've established the housing corporation, we've had conversations with four other house corporations and how we might be able to assist them and what their needs are. And we really see this as a secondary support to our house corporations who need it. And so if there's house corporation presidents out there and you just want to talk more about the house corporation, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a conversation about what we're trying to do with housing. And then the second area that we've really made some major progress on in the last 18 months, and this was a initiative that we spent 4 years working on. It was led by our loss prevention chairman, Jordan Lotsoff. We, along with two other international fraternities, started a fraternity captive, and it's a new insurance captive. And so what that essentially means is that the three of us came together to start an insurance company. And what that captive ultimately does, it strengthens our risk management. We hope it'll lower our long-term insurance costs. And most importantly, it gives the fraternity greater control over our insurance program. There's concerns about the long-term availability of insurance, and that's why we wanted to pursue a captive. And so now that we were able to establish it, we feel confident about the next 5, 10, 15 years when it comes to our insurance programs and being able to have adequate insurance at a price point that is competitive for our undergraduates. And we've had two other international fraternities reach out to us and say, we love what you're doing with the captive, we're interested, and so we may be adding a couple organizations. But I think what's key to add here is we are being very selective on the organizations that we're inviting into our captive because we are one risk pool. And so we only want those organizations that share the values of DU, that are supporting their chapters, and are responsible when it comes to addressing risk management issues. And so really, we want this captive to be best in class in the industry so that other people look at it and say, that is what an insurance captive should look like. And so we had some questions that were submitted in advance by our President's Club members, but before we move there, I have an exciting update from the Delta Upsilon Educational Foundation that I wanted to share. So last December, over the holiday time actually, we received a call from a loyal alumnus and a longtime volunteer, Pat Spooner, San Jose 55. And Pat had a planned estate gift with Delta Upsilon, and Pat said, I think that the fraternity and the foundation really could probably use the support now and not wait until there's a planned estate gift. And so Pat shared with us that he wanted to make a $1 million cash gift to Delta Upsilon this fiscal year. And so what I do want to share is that Pat's gift is the largest cash gift ever received to support educational programming and tuition scholarships in the history of our fraternity. And when our foundation team had a chance to talk to Pat about why he made this tremendous gift, Pat told us, he said, one of my motivations to do it now and not wait is that I hope it will inspire other brothers to support the future of Delta Upsilon. And at whatever level and whatever means they can, I just want to show people that DU is important. It has been important in my life since I graduated in 1955. I'm still working with today's undergraduates, and I think they need our support more than ever before. And so we are so grateful to Pat for his generosity and his lifelong commitment to the fraternity, and that he wanted to inspire other DUs to commit to the long-term health and future of our fraternity. And so with that, we had a couple members of our President's Club submit questions in advance, just about topics they were curious about. And so I'm going to take a chance here and just answer a couple of those. And so the first one was asking about upperclassmen engagement, data on seniors participating in DU programming. And I think what we're seeing, the reality is that a lot of our seniors have already held leadership positions in the chapter. We were just at President's Academy in January, and more than half the room were sophomore chapter presidents. And so by the time our men are becoming seniors, there's not a lot left for them to engage in the chapter experience. And so we've had a lot of conversation about that, and Tom talked about how do we provide more impactful experiences for our undergraduates. And when we say undergraduates, that means freshman through senior year. And so as we think about our programming, we're thinking about what programming is needed for seniors that is going to be different than for a chapter officer or an emerging leader. And then our alumni involvement committee, one of the populations that they're really focused on is the graduates from the last 5 years. So your first 5 years out of school, how do we keep you connected to DU? But to do that, we need our seniors engaged, we need our seniors connected so that when they do graduate, they transition into this last 5 year experience. So we do have an initiative that we're going to announce later this spring that we're going to roll out at the Leadership Institute. And then our Alumni Involvement Committee, as Tom mentioned, has some ideas on how they're going to start to engage graduates within the first 5 years. And we're hopeful that that will start to connect our seniors back to the experience and keep them involved when they graduate. Then our second question was about the Meta Merit Program. And I'll just answer this one briefly, but our Meta Merit Standards Program, it accomplishes really just a couple different things for the fraternity. And so for the first thing, it's we want to give chapters some key areas and metrics for them to focus on. And so if they're a chapter leader and they say, what should I be striving for? What are the aspirational measures? What are other chapters doing? What makes a healthy chapter? We have areas of focus. We provide goals and aspiration for those chapter leaders on what makes a healthy chapter. Second, our sweepstakes awards and many of our chapter awards are all driven by the Meta Merit Standards programs. So the chapters that do well in the Meta Merit Standards, we recognize them each summer at the Leadership Institute. And this program gets revised regularly. And so, in most years, the board is making some revisions based on feedback from undergraduates, from advisors, or from the staff, so that we can continue to ensure that that program is driving chapters towards the success that we want. And a couple of other things that we do with that data is a lot of the data collection we're required to collect and report back to the NIC, the North American Interfraternity Conference, and then they're able to provide us data for all 73 men's national fraternities based on the data we collect. And then lastly, the standards program is just one of the areas that we look at, along with our membership outcomes assessment, to determine our servicing priorities for the upcoming year. And so there's 2 to 3 things that we look at to say, what chapters need a servicing visit? What chapters need recruitment help? What chapters might need one of our building men or men retreats? And so the Men and Merit Standards Program help us identify the chapters that need the most need and which areas that they're needed in. Next, a great question about how do we balance growth and chapter well-being, because we talked a lot about growth tonight. And I would say that growth is a renewed focus for the fraternity. But when it comes to the allocation of our resources and our staff time and our budget, the great majority of that is dedicated to chapter well-being with a smaller portion on growth. And so within the headquarters staff and our operation, we have our growth team, and that consists of our leadership consultants and Hayden Ron, who leads the expansion and growth team. But then we have a chapter servicing team with 3 members. We have an educational programs team with 3 members, and our communications team. We're all focused on chapter servicing, educational programming, impactful experiences, and chapter well-being. So we feel like we have a good balance as far as staffing and resource allocation when it comes to both growth and chapter well-being. And then the last one is probably a topic that we could do an entire webinar on and spend an hour talking about. And this really what the board is focused on talking about at each of its meetings. And it really is amazing to think that we are just 8 years away from the 200th anniversary of Delta Upsilon in 2034. And so we've had some conversations of what is fraternity going to look like in 2034, and what do we need to be doing as a fraternity to set us up for success when we reach that milestone. And so for me and for my colleagues, when we're talking about what are the greatest challenges facing fraternities, the first one is the enrollment cliff that you may have heard about. And the enrollment cliff simply is in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be fewer students attending college than there has been in the last 75 years. And so that is solely driven by birth rates in the United States. And so what we're seeing is a decline in the number of students attending university, which then ultimately is a smaller population for us to recruit from. But really, what I'm most concerned about here is there are certain campuses that will be more impacted by the enrollment cliff than others. And we're seeing the regional directional state schools are the ones being impacted most. Those that are the flagship or what you might call the Power Four schools, they'll always draw a large population from their given states, but it's often those other state schools that are seeing large declines. And so our trade association, the NIC, has been tracking men's enrollment on our top 200 campuses for the last 10 years. And there are some campuses, let me just say like Indiana State and a Central Michigan, what we would call a regional directional, they've seen a 40% decline in men's enrollment. And so I'm concerned about those campuses, the fraternity system there, and how we're going to support our chapters on some of those campuses. And then lastly, there was a large industry-wide survey about alumni's attitudes and interests, and many of you may have participated in that. And one of the things that we saw from that survey is when it comes to giving patterns, our alumni from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s are engaged, they're involved, and they're overly generous. But then those alums from the 90s and the early 2000s across all fraternities are less engaged with their philanthropy. And so, what can we do as a fraternity to connect those alumni to the experience? Because we know they had a great experience, but how do we talk about what DU is doing today so that they want to give back to future generations of DUs that can have the same experience? And so those are just a couple of the questions that we got. But if people have more questions, feel free to send them to me. We can set up a phone call. Happy to answer anybody's questions and really do appreciate everybody for logging in tonight. These are great opportunities to tell the DU story and then for you to be more informed about what we're doing and to share the story with other DUs. So Tom, I'll turn it back to you.
Uh, Justin hit on an awful lot of information. We're so grateful you take time. This is one of the reasons we do the town hall, is so that we can have a few minutes to go over what is happening. It's just, I feel like it's constantly going with the fraternity. And as we close in on 200 years, we get so excited about the things that we are working on that will hopefully set us up well for the next 100 years. Whether that's the fraternity's insurance captive, which has become a huge part of what we have to address in the world today, our housing corporation. What do we do with the amazing contributions like Brother Spooner and that we just closed in on with our capital camp, with our recent fraternity campaign? There's just lots and lots going on. So we hope that you will take the information and share it out. That's the other, I guess, the most important thing I want to say is there's lots of great things happening in the fraternity, and not everybody's able to join us tonight. So you're going to be able to have access to the town hall. We do keep it available at DU headquarters. But if you have an opportunity to share out some of the things that you learned, suggest that someone head to headquarters to the website and try and get a hold of the town hall so that they too can be brought up to speed on the many great things happening across the fraternity that get us excited about the future. That's what keeps me going, is that we're preparing and we're supporting our undergraduates, not only for them to go through the experience of becoming DU, but beyond. Again, as Justin mentioned, if you have any questions about anything you heard tonight, please feel free to reach out to us. We are so grateful always, always, always for your continued support of the fraternity and of the undergraduates near you and your alumni brothers. Thank you always for being a part of tonight and the future, and we wish you all the best. Dikaya Upetheka, and have a great night.